time to wake up. It's 5, and we're live.
Oh, is this thing on? I don't care. I want him to hear.
This is the Pregame Show, your early morning shot of sports on 95.7 The Game.
Come on! Happy hump day, people. Happy hump day.
Let's go. Fire it up, baby. Happy hump day. Good morning to all of you. Just getting off work, getting ready for work, getting ready for the weekend. You got finals you got to do if you're in college, if you're in high school, if you're up early, you're cramming, you're doing whatever you got to do. First of all, if you're trying to study right now, I don't know why you're listening to me. I'm just going to be the biggest distraction of your life, but I appreciate you anyways. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Pregame Show. Joe Spadoni. You got me for the next hour before handing it off to Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky at 6 o'clock. And they got a locked and loaded guest list. We had a locked and loaded guest list all day at the station yesterday. I mean, we had Brian Baldinger breaking it all down. We had Ross Tucker breaking it all down. We had Kurt freaking Warner, the Hall of Famer, breaking it all down when it comes to the 49ers, when it comes to Brock Purdy, when it comes to Sam Darnold? What? Sam Darnold? The guy that was the backup for the 49ers last year, we want him to start next year? That's kind of how I feel right now. And no, it's not Tony in Oakland coming in.
That was literally my first thought.
No, that would have been unbelievable at 5:01 a.m. if Tony in Oakland called in. But no, alas, she is not. But you can see her this Friday at the Doobie Awards at Laughing Monk Brewery. Or is it Brewing? Excuse me. Laughing Monk Brewing. In Sunnyvale, there's a difference. Be there or be square, baby. All right? It's going to be packed. It's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be fun. There's going to be free food. There's going to be drinks. It's going to be everything you wanted it to be. It's basically a Christmas party. All right? We're having a good time. That's basically what it is. If you don't celebrate Christmas, it's a Hanukkah party, Ramadan, whatever it is happening in your life. It's a party. We're all celebrating the Doobies. We're all celebrating each other in the end of the year. So be there. Laughing Monk Brewing, out in Sunnyvale. Get there early. Yeah, we can't promise you a spot. You got to get there a little early, all right? And yeah, there's a lot of different nominees. Some that cross over from the pregame show to the morning roast. All right, you heard me just mention it. Brian Baldinger joined the morning roast yesterday and had this to say when asked about Brock Purdy's future, his contract, and all of that when it comes to negotiations with the San Francisco 49ers. This is what Baldy had to say yesterday on the morning roast with Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky. Take a listen.
I'd say I'd go flip them for Sam Darnold right now.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
Why would so Minnesota? Look, let's just think about Sam for a sec. You sat there as a backup all year. You learned what a first-class franchise, game planning, how to build a team. Like he saw that for the first time in his life. Now he's with Kevin O'Connell, who's an elite play caller with a very, very good offense that has a real style to it, and he's flourishing. Minnesota doesn't have to commit anything to him right now. All they're doing, I talked to the general manager 2 weeks ago, Quezzy, just to play it out. They've got a quarterback they drafted. They don't have to give them top flight money, or they could trade him. Like, I would be having a conversation with Minnesota to see what it would take to get Sam Darnold back. He's a bigger, stronger.
All right. Wow. He would have the conversation. If he was John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, he would have the conversation with Minnesota to try to go get Sam freaking Darnold. Now, that was Baldy. And we're going to replay what Kurt Warner had to say here because he had a phenomenal interview yesterday with Willard and Dibbs that we're going to play here shortly. Find all the cuts, by the way, all the interviews, courtesy of the River Islands guest line on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, or download the Odyssey app because that's really what you want to do. Download the Odyssey app. You can hit the rewind link. There's awesome features there. And it's not just 95.7 The Game. There's those other stuff. But I'm not promoting that. I'm promoting 95.7 The Game. All right? Download the Odyssey app. It is free. It is spectacular. And you're not going to regret it. All right? Just like this Kurt Warner interview, who joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday. And Mark Willard asked him who Brock Purdy reminds him of. And specifically, does Kurt Warner think that Brock Purdy's in the likes of a Nick Foles or a Trent Dilfer?
I mean, no, I don't buy that. And again, I mean, you have to kind of put it all in perspective that, so much of it is about the situation that you're in, what you bring your team in that situation. So, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say Trent Dilfer wasn't a good quarterback or Nick Foles wasn't a good quarterback. Both guys obviously going to and winning Super Bowls, of course. I just think you have to look at the body of work and you have to look at the situation that they're in. And you have to ask yourself the question, most importantly, is who do we think we have in this quarterback? And, how does he fit into our system? And then maybe the last piece is there somebody else, and not even somebody else, are there numerous people that we think we could place into this situation and them play the position better than who we have? And those, to me, are the questions that every team has to ask. I look at Miami. There's a lot of conversations about Tua and Miami and all of that stuff. Tua, I don't know if he's as good in another system or other systems as he is in Miami. But I could also say I don't know how many quarterbacks in the National Football League would be as good as Tua in that system. And so they went and paid him. Why? Because he's really, really good at what they're asking him to do, and they don't believe there's other guys out there or more than a couple other guys out there that, chances they probably aren't going to get him anyways, a couple other guys out there that could play in that system as well as he does. So that to me becomes a big part of the equation. And then I think the other part of the equation is, if that's the case, what are you willing to pay the guy? Because I do believe there always has to be an element of understanding whether that player, that quarterback specifically, can truly elevate your team if you don't have all the pieces around them that maybe they've had. And I think, Brock's a great example. They've had great talent and they have a great situation. And I think Brock plays in that situation at an extremely high level and does things that I don't think there's very many quarterbacks in the National Football League that could do as consistently in that system. And that to me is where he's got tremendous value. But you also realize if you go and pay a guy $50, $60 million, you're not going to have the same pieces around him in most situations. So does he have the ability to elevate your team without those pieces? And that's where I think all of this comes in is, is he a $60 million quarterback? Is he a $40 million quarterback? And I know the league has gone crazy in the standpoint that so much of it is next man up. Next man up. We've got to pay him, more than the last guy got. I'm not a believer in that. Now, I don't know how you get around it. I don't have to do that as a general manager, but I'm not a believer that everybody is just a $60 million quarterback because they're a starting quarterback in the National Football League. But, you have to figure that out within an organization to say, hey, where's the quarterback see himself? Does the quarterback think he can go get $60 million somewhere else? Does he think he can be as successful in another system so he's going to hold out to get more money? Or do they realistically understand situation is beneficial to me? I'm a good quarterback, and together we have a chance to be really, really successful, for me to have a great career. And so I do understand where I fit in the hierarchy of quarterbacks in the NFL, and I'll take what I believe or where I believe I fit. I'll take $40 million. I'll take $35 million to be a part of this and to have a chance to succeed for the long term.
Hall of Famer Kurt Warner here on Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game. So you talked about system, and I know you've seen every snap from every team this year, which I love, by the way. When you look at Brock Purdy and the system and the scheme, why has it seemed like a regression from Brock Purdy this year as opposed to last year?
Well, I mean, yeah, I will say I don't think Brock has played and seen the game quite as well this year as he has the last couple of years, and especially down the stretch here. And, I can't explain exactly why. In watching what they do in San Francisco, Kyle does an unbelievable job of building this offense around their run game and around their play action. And he does a great job of creating opportunities for guys and creating open players. But I also believe that the system and the way it's set up doesn't always get those guys open the way that Kyle wants them to be open. And what I mean by that is it's not structured in such a way that, if I've got a big in route that's running 18 yards, there's not always a guy underneath that in route. So if the linebacker falls underneath the end, I can automatically just go right to the guy underneath it, and it becomes an easy high-low read. The offense isn't always dictated that way. So the quarterback, gets put in a position where it's like, find a way to make that throw if you can, right? And Brock does a great job of layering throws and have great anticipation and timing to be able to make some of these throws work that, aren't really, set up perfectly for him to make them work or for any quarterback to make work. And so I believe there are some challenges within the pass game of the 49ers that really challenge a quarterback. And so, some of those throws are hard. And I've seen Brock make a lot of those throws consistently over the last few years. This year, not as much. And, so when the game is hard, but we're in situations where the game is harder, I know we expect guys to make that throw every time, but sometimes you just don't. Sometimes those throws are just hard, and you can't make that hard throw every time. And it just seems like there's been way more of those situations and way more times when Brock just hasn't made the throw and, when he hasn't seen the field quite as well as he has the past couple of years. And so, again, it adds another layer to this whole conversation, right, is that, if you're asking this conversation the last 2 years, you're just like, man, you're seeing a different subset of how he's playing. And then you have a bit of a down year for whatever reason. A lot of different things obviously are going on in San Francisco. A little bit of a down year, which now starts you to ask the question, who exactly is Brock Purdy moving forward, and who's he going to be, and why is he not seeing it as well? I mean, I could say the same thing about Patrick Mahomes. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is playing nearly as well this year, kind of on schedule and within the scheme of things. I think he's missing throws that he has made in the past. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but I could look at that. He's just got enough of a body of work, obviously, for us to go, all right, we're going to chalk this up, and probably more than chalk it up to a bad year, we're going to blame other things, right? We're going to blame the protection, and we're going to blame the weapons on the outside more than we're going to blame Patrick Mahomes, because he's shown us what he is. And so there's just so many factors that go into how we're looking at it and when we're looking at these kind of situations, and then having an understanding of play to play, game to game, how a player is really playing, what's really going on, and then probably what is their overall value, to that team or to that situation, and what are we willing to pay a guy because of whatever that skill set is.
Kurt, conversely, I want to ask you about Sam Darnold. A lot of talk about him here because he was here last year. Also, our friend Brian Baldinger came on earlier this morning and said he would try to flip Purdy for Darnold, even though that's not sort of really possible based on their situations. But I do want to ask you about Sam. Why has he suddenly popped and looked so much better, in your opinion?
I mean, the first thing just makes me laugh because, what about the last 2 years with Brock Purdy? I remember I kind of went through since St. Louis too, is that, went to a couple Super Bowls, won a couple MVPs, and then we had a down year after our second Super Bowl. And, and people were asking, well, are you going to, change quarterbacks and whatever? And I just remember Mike Martz at one point in the season going, what, are you guys a part of the amnesia crowd? Have you forgot, what happened the last 3 years and how good Kurt was? We're not just going to panic because we've had a bad stretch here, but it's almost like that's what we're doing in San Francisco. Let's forget about these last 2 years because this year hasn't been as good. And then the same with Sam Darnold. Let's forget about everything else he's done in the league because he's been wildly inconsistent. And although he's shown glimpses, He's never been able to put it together. And now he's having this incredible year in Minnesota, and we're all ready to say, oh, let's flop him, and let's take this guy because he's having a great year, even though he's never shown the ability to put 2 great years together back to back. So it's so funny how we have such recency bias on so many different things in this league instead of just trying to figure out, okay, who is this guy? Yeah, that's what we need to know. Who is Sam Darnold? Is Sam Darnold the inconsistent up and down guy that we've seen most of his career, or is he the guy that we're seeing this year play with great confidence and being surrounded by great playmakers and being surrounded by a coach that believes in him and setting him up for success in a lot of situations? Is that what we're going to get from Sam Darnold? Is it just now he's matured, he's found the right system, and we're going to see this guy play this way the rest of his career? I don't know the answer to that, but I would have to see it. I would need to see another season like this before I'm ready to say that's who he is, because we've seen plenty of players in this league that, run into one of those just magical seasons. They have a magical run, in one season. They can win an MVP. They can go to the Super Bowl. Like, all these things can happen in one season. But then what happens is we normally see how this levels out. And you go, oh, okay, they had that one outlier season that was just better than everything else. And the rest of their career, they're this guy. And that's really what you're trying to figure out with all of these quarterbacks. And so Sam, I think, is in a great situation. He's playing really good football. He's surrounded by a lot of really good pieces that have made the game easier for him. And so things have just kind of come together perfectly for Sam this year. But I want to see another year like this. Before I'm ready to go, that's the guy, and this is, who we thought he could be. I want to see him stack another season together that's just not quite as perfect, right? The things around him aren't quite as good, and show me that you can still be a similar type player, and now I can invest in something like that.
Is it fair to put the Niners in that same bucket with Brock Purdy? Because last year, everything kind of broke his way. They were healthy, the schedule was easier, and he was amazing. And then this year, injuries, maybe teams caught up to the scheme, tougher schedule. He hasn't had the same kind of year. Is it fair for the Niners to still kind of have the jury out based on what you've seen?
Well, I mean, Brock's had more than just 1 year. Right? He's been behind center, quite a while now, and he's shown the consistency, in my opinion, to say, I know who Brock Purdy is. I know what he is. And this year, again, if it was just Brock Purdy this year and not a whole bunch of other factors, maybe that would give me a little bit more pause on who I think he is as a quarterback. But with, seeing when the situation was good and how they expected it to be, and he was always at a high level. He was playing really, really well from the time he became a starter up until, this year. So that to me was a pretty good body of work to say, I know who Brock is. And I've even seen glimpses of all of that stuff this year. So it's not like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing him do anything that he's done the last 2 years. What the heck has happened to him? He still does a lot of those really good things within the offense. He just hasn't had as good a year. He just hasn't seen it as well. The situation, he's got different guys in there. The continuity is not there. It's just not the same. I mean, what about C.J. Stroud? What are we saying about C.J. Stroud right now? Is C.J. Stroud a top-level starter in the league because we saw him be Rookie of the Year last year and we saw him come on the scene and you were just like, oh my gosh, this guy's incredible. And now here in his second year, he hasn't been nearly as good. And so now what do we say about him? So again, that to me is why you don't really know who a quarterback is until you're 4 or 5 years into that thing. And you could really see and have the consistency to go, okay, this is what he does well. This is what we can hang our hat on. This is the guy that can carry us. Yep, he's going to throw some interceptions. He's going to do this. But these are the things that we know about him. It's hard to tell after a season or two. We just want to jump one way or another instead of saying, hey, let's ride the course and, let's figure out who he is. And then we'll figure out what his value is and what we're willing to pay him and all of those pieces from there.
The great Kurt Warner is joining us here on Willard and Dibs 95.7 The Game. Kurt, we've talked to you so much about Purdy, and it's evident that there's a connection there, at least in your mind, because of the fact that you guys had, I guess maybe somewhat similar paths in that you weren't high draft picks. And because of that, it does feel like you have to prove yourself over and over. What's that like once you've proved it and then you still have everybody doubting it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough, but you also understand it's the nature of this business. I mean, it's the nature of what we do. And, and there's always going to be that and I don't say always, for a period of time, there's always going to be that underlying idea of this is why you weren't drafted, Kurt, right? There was a reason you weren't drafted and became a free agent. And so every time there's a glimpse of something that doesn't measure up or isn't great, it's easy to kind of fall back in your mind or your mindset to just say, okay, here it is. This is why. Right? Brock doesn't have a big cannon arm, so, he's not going to wow us with throws like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or whoever that is. And so you're going to see that at times and you're going to be like, that's why, he's Mr. Irrelevant. That's why he wasn't drafted high. Maybe that's the reason why he can't be good in this league or we shouldn't pay him $60 million. So I just think, and I think too, as a player, I understood that. Like, I understood what my limitations were. And so I understood why people could gravitate to certain things. And for me, it was always, but here's the things that I do really, really well. Here are the things that make me different from everybody else. And so I could always kind of hang on the realism of knowing, yep, I'm not going to wow people that way, right? I'm not going to do that. And so, the games that I struggle, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about Lamar Jackson. And, Lamar is so good in so many different ways. But, he had like another game where he had, same amount of incompletions as touchdowns or vice versa, whatever. And, and when you watch him play, the amazing thing about Lamar Jackson and why he has so many games like that is because when there's one time where a guy isn't open or he doesn't see it, he doesn't just have to throw it anyways. He doesn't have to try to make that throw into tight coverage, or he doesn't have to throw the ball away. He can go and create, even if it's a 5-yard run, he goes and creates a positive play in a situation where a guy like me has to throw that ball away, take a sack, or try to, make the perfect throw into coverage to get a completion there. And so I understood, those are my limitations. There are going to be some games where I throw 5 interceptions where Lamar Jackson probably won't throw 5 interceptions, because where I know I've got to do something with my right arm, he says, I don't have to do that. I can go run around and I can do something else and do something positive for my team. I couldn't do that. I was stuck, because of my limitations. And I understood that. And I knew there were going to be games like that. But I also knew there was going to be games where I was going to see it faster and I was going to make more plays and I was going to be more accurate and I was going to do those things. And that would carry me. But in those games where, all those things just, weren't easy and they were hard and I wasn't on the top of my game, I understood that, hey, those are going to happen. They are going to happen because I am very reliant on the things around me to allow me to have success. I'm not going to go out there and be Josh Allen and be able to run around and run through 5 guys. And if I don't see it, run for 30 yards and get a touchdown. It's just not going to happen. And so most guys in the league are like that, like me, that have limitations. And we have got to win with this one kind of skill set and strength set that we have. And anything that falls outside of that is going to be more of a challenge for us. And so, Brock falls into that category, is that I get it. He is not one of those other guys. So he does need pieces to be right around him. And, Jared Goff, same way. And he's playing great football and he's in the MVP conversation, but things have to be more right around him than they have to be for some of these other guys. And, that doesn't mean that they're not valuable. It doesn't mean they're not a starting quarterback in the National Football League. It just means they don't have all the skill sets. And, you guys know it. Every team would love to have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's what every team would love to have. But there's 3 of those guys. Like, there's only 3 of them. And they're rare. And so, to try to always compare really good quarterbacks to those guys and understand, well, you're not having that many games where you have more, touchdowns and incompletions, then you're not valuable. Well, you're just valuable in a different way. And that's what each team has to do. They have to value their guy in their way based on their system and decide, what that number is for them if they're going to re-sign them to a deal.
Kurt Warner yesterday, right here on 95.7 The Game. There's a couple more minutes left in that interview, so if you want to listen to it, I urge you to download the Odyssey app or visit on YouTube and like and subscribe there. That would be amazing. It's the pregame show. Joe Spadoni here. 1 segment down, 2 more to go. We're going to react to what Kurt had to say in regards to that interview. Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold. There's so much to get into there. Oh, plus the Warriors introduced their newest player yesterday, and he spoke to the media, one Dennis Schröder, by way of Germany, formerly of the Brooklyn Nets, formerly of a lot of teams. So we'll get into that, what Steve Kerr had to say as well, because Steve Kerr also joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday, courtesy of the River Islands Guest Line, head coach of the Golden State Warriors, and he had some thoughts on the acquisition of one Dennis Schröder. All that coming up next, right here on the pregame show. Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
ongoing activities and historical presentations. Go to sfhistory.org and discover the San Francisco Historical Society, giving our history a great future. Become a member today.
Bay Area, this is Jonathan Kuminga. You're listening to the Pregame Show with Joe Spadoni.
And then 2 days off, I should say, or a day off. What is it? Thursday? Whatever. They play the Minnesota Timberwolves this weekend. And they'll have Dennis Schröder alongside them. And Dennis Schröder spoke to the media yesterday. We also had Steve Kerr on our airwaves right here on 95.7 The Game, joining Willard and Dibbs. So we're going to get into that as well. But wanted to react to what Kurt Warner said last segment. And if you missed any of it, Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer, MVP, joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday. Does work for NFL Network now. Very tapped in when it comes to all things quarterbacks. And he had some interesting thoughts on Brock Purdy. Find that entire interview again on YouTube, free Odyssey app. Download that. And this is the one that I'm not buying the comparison between Brock and Kurt. I understand that Kurt sees a lot of himself in Brock Purdy. I just don't think they're the same player. And Kurt, by the way, is 6'2". It's not like he was a slouch physically. 6'2" is a pretty standard height. 6'2", 6'3", you'd say, right? That's perfect. He had an arm. I know we like to think oh, dome quarterback, greatest show on turf. Guy had an arm. I mean, every highlight you watch of the greatest show on turf, yes, it's Marshall Faulk, but Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, all these guys just wide open, just bomb skis. But here's Kurt talking about how he and Purdy, as not high draft picks, have to continue to prove their worth in the NFL. And this, I agree to an extent.
For a period of time, there's always going to be that underlying idea of this is why you weren't drafted, Kurt. There was a reason you weren't drafted and became a free agent. And so every time there's a glimpse of something that doesn't measure up or isn't great, it's easy to kind of fall back in your mind or your mindset to just say, okay, here it is. This is why. Brock doesn't have a big cannon arm. He's not going to wow us with throws like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or whoever that is. And so you're going to see that at times and you're going to be like, that's why, he's Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe that's the reason why he can't be good in this league or we shouldn't pay him $60 million. So I just think, too, as a player, I understood that. I understood what my limitations were. And so I understood why people could gravitate to certain things. And for me, it was always, but here's the things that I do really, really well. Here are the things that make me different from everybody else. And so I could always kind of hang on the realism of knowing, yep, I'm not going to wow people that way.
No, but he wowed the people with again, Kurt's arm. I think he's underrating it a little bit here. And I'm not to say that Brock Purdy doesn't have, a water pistol of an arm. No, serviceable. But there are some concerns I have when it comes to Brock Purdy's limitations there, because he's already going to be having multiple injuries on that throwing arm. He's had Tommy John surgery, and we'll see what this shoulder's going to look like in the offseason. He's going to have to get that, cleaned up. So that's 2 surgeries in his first 3 seasons. That's concerning for a guy that does have, compared to others, limited arm strength. So that does concern me. What else is concerning to me is the fact that everything has to be right around him to succeed. Now, you could say this for a lot of quarterbacks, and Kurt Warner mentioned it, the Jared Goffs of the world, the Tua Tagovailoas of the world, the Baker Mayfields probably of the world. There's a lot of players. Kirk Cousins for a while, although Kirk Cousins now benched for rookie Michael Penix out of Washington. So Raheem Morris making the move in the switch yesterday. So Michael Penix, come on down, and he gets a date with the New York Giants, who currently, if the season ended today, have the number 1 overall pick. So Michael Penix, come on down. Who has a cannon, by the way. He's got tremendous arm talent. But Kurt talking about Brock as one of those players. We heard Jerry say it as well. Brock can get better if you add around him. So the talent has to be there in place. It's not like what Josh Allen is doing, what Patrick Mahomes is doing, what Lamar Jackson does when there's not a lot around him. Like that, we're talking about 3 Hall of Famers right there. Just because you're a Hall of Very Good doesn't make you any less of a quarterback. It just makes things a little harder when it comes to the final goal. And what the final goal is for the 49ers and their fans is winning the Super Bowl. And it's really freaking hard to do that. It's really difficult. Eli Manning did it twice. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. But outside of those 2 Super Bowl runs, guy was mid. But he won those Super Bowl runs. He's got 2 trophies. Beat the Patriots twice. He's going to go. Nick Foles had an unbelievable run with the Philadelphia Eagles. Took over for Carson Wentz late in that season. Didn't look back. They won the whole damn thing. They beat the Patriots. Which is still kind of crazy that the only 3 losses in the Super Bowl for Tom Brady are twice to Eli Manning and one to Nick Foles. It's unbelievable. Well, he's got the win over Patrick Mahomes. So there's that. But here is Kurt talking about Purdy falling into that, quote, other category of guys that need things around him to be going well.
Brock falls into that category. Is that, I get it. He is not one of those other guys. So he does need pieces to be right around him. And, Jared Goff, same way. And he's playing great football and he's in the MVP conversation, but things have to be more right around him than they have to be for some of these other guys. And, that doesn't mean that they're not valuable. It doesn't mean they're not a starting quarterback in the National Football League. It just means they don't have all the skill sets. And, you guys know it. Every team would love to have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. That's what every team would love to have. But there's 3 of those guys. They're rare. And so, to try to always compare really good quarterbacks to those guys and understand, well, you're not having that many games where you have more touchdowns and incompletions, then you're not valuable. Well, you're just valuable in a different way. And that's what each team has to do. They have to value their guy in their way based on their system and decide, what that number is for them if they're going to re-sign them to a deal.
The plot thickens when it comes to Brock Purdy. They're going to pay him. I don't envision a scenario where they don't. Now we're just getting to the number. And if I'm Brock's agent, I'm absolutely pointing to my postseason resume. Oh, Dak just got paid this? Yeah, well, I've already accomplished more than Dak Prescott has. Oh, Trevor Lawrence, what has he done? He's won 1 playoff game. Great. And what has he done outside of that? Oh, nothing? Oh, okay. Yeah. I should get paid just as much as him then, if not more. It's kind of that simple. If you're going into these negotiations and just put the resume out there. My first full season in the NFL, if I'm Brock Purdy, I was an MVP candidate, bro. And yeah, did this past season go well? No, it didn't. But how would it have gone if I wasn't out there? How many wins would we have? 2, 3? Brandon Allen? Josh Dobbs? Come on. So there's so many layers to this conversation that's going to be taking place, and the season's not even over. And I do wonder what Brock Purdy could be playing for here potentially in these final 3 games. Does he have anything to gain in these final 3 games? Or does he have something to lose in these final 3 games when it comes to his future contract negotiations? We can get into that. 888-957-9570. Plus, I want to hear from Dennis Schröder, the newest acquisition of the Golden State Warriors, who spoke to the media yesterday, and Steve Kerr on his thoughts when he joined Willard and Dibs. That's all coming up next on the pregame show. Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
Hey, holiday heroes. It's a special time of year.
Spadoni on 95.7 The Game.
I love them all. Nat King Cole. I love it all. But it's Wham, baby. It's a Wham Wednesday. See, I can't even talk. It's going to be I think this is my last segment of the pregame show till the new year. Yeah. No tomorrow. I'm filling in for Bonte tomorrow, so I'll be alongside Joe Shasky. And Friday, we're doing the live remote, so I'm going to be prepping here, so I will not have the pregame show on Friday. So, yeah, this is going to be my last show. I'm going to be filling in on the morning roast the next couple weeks after that. So, damn, another year down in the pregame show. I think that's my second full year. Look at that. We got through it, didn't we? A lot happened. Niners Super Bowl loss. Farhan's gone. Warriors get bounced by the Kings. Not quite a year in review here. We're not going to do that because we didn't know what happened. But I've enjoyed my time here on the pregame show. And now this isn't a goodbye. I'm coming back. Start of January. You'll hear me again, 5 a.m. But this is my last show for at least the next few weeks. All right. We've been talking Brock Purdy. We were talking Kurt Warner sound reaction. We've heard from Baldy. We've heard it all. Sam Darnold, everything. How about we do a little pivot to the Golden State Warriors and what's going on there? Because a lot's happening with the Golden State Warriors. We had Joe Lacob speaking to Tim Kawakami this week. His thoughts on the Schröder trade. Mike Dunleavy spoke about it. Now the head coach and the player himself, I want to hear from. First and foremost, let's hear from Dennis. And here he is, the pride of Deutschland, talking about his love for San Francisco.
I mean, I was in the Four Seasons every time we came down with the team. But then when you walked out, it kind of looked like Europe, kind of looked like Berlin, with the train right on the street. That's what we have. And had one store with German candy in it, I remember. So I loved San Francisco, from the start. It was always great being here, playing here. Seeing the fan base when they went on a crazy run, how loud it got, and
on a crazy run. And it feels like that's forever ago, but it's really not when they won a title just a couple seasons ago. But it's crazy how fast things change. And now all of a sudden Dennis Schröder seems like not a big move, but it's like, wow, a significant move. And he's going to provide something for this team that I think it desperately needs. It needs, and I know Draymond provides this for the most part, but not all the time, especially on offense. Like, he provides some urgency offensively that I appreciate in his game. He does. Now, he'll make some boneheaded decisions. He'll do some dumb things. He'll also do some amazing things that makes you go, wow, how did he make that shot? He's that kind of player. He toes that line. And I love that play. I love a little chaos on the court at times. Organized chaos. Was that Jeff Garcia? Organized chaos. It's kind of what Dennis Schröder does. Likes the ball in his hands, but he can distribute. He's averaging his highest assist totals of his career this season. How's he going to be with that second unit? How's he going to be on the floor late in the game if he has to close? How's he going to be when he has to play with Steph, when he has to be handling the ball, with Draymond, with like all these guys? How's it going to look? Here's what Schröder had to say on his fit in Golden State.
The first thing what they said is just, play your game, kind of. Just be yourself and we want you to, push the ball. If you don't have it, just run with Steph, and he gonna make the play because they, 80, 90, 95% they're gonna blitz the pick and roll, so it's gonna be wide open shots on the weak side, and we are ready for it, and I just try to get used to that playing style a little bit. And I got better. I think I shot like 6 to 7 threes this year, and that's my career high. So playing with him obviously is going to be a lot of shots. So I got to be ready for that as well.
And he's improved his three-point shot, Dennis Schröder has. It's not something that he's known for. It's not something that you are going to be leaning on. But it's the kind of thing where if he's making a couple, the opposing defense is going to have to respect it. And if they have to respect that, that just opens up more spacing on the court. And listen, it's going to be pick your poison at times when you got the likes of a Buddy Hield out there, Steph Curry. And if Dennis Schroeder's knocking down threes, it's just like, oh God, are you serious? Like, come on. It's almost like when Draymond's knocking down threes, it's just like, oh, it's a bonus. At that point, it's just like, all right, what can't we do? And this season, Dennis is shooting 38% from beyond the arc. Last year was his career high. He shot 41% from three-point land. So Dennis shooting that three ball, improving. Came into the league. What was he shooting? Shooting his first full season. Oh, check that. No, that was his field goal percentage. No, I was right. He shot 238 his first full season. Yikes. Then got to 350, back to 320, look at 290. Yeah, he's been working on it. And the attempts, to his point, are the highest in his career. He's averaging 6.5 three-pointers a game. And he's almost making a 40% clip. That makes him a solid three-point shooter that you have to respect, at least this season. Can he keep it up? We'll see. Can he adapt to this offense? We'll see. He was also asked about his two-way ability and playing alongside Draymond Green.
For me, I always relied on my defense. At the end of the day, I'm always try to impact the game on both ends. Obviously, you can't control if the ball goes in, but I can always rely on my effort every single night, on my energy, the leadership I bring. And so that's the reason why I feel really, really excited playing with Draymond, because, 2022, like you guys seen, like we was going at it. And I knew him before. People were saying how it's gonna work, but we pretty got a good relationship even before that. So really looking forward to play with another Hall of Famer on the court who was always hell when you was on the other side of it.
888-957-9570 Dub Nation. How we feeling about Dennis Schröder joining the Golden State Warriors? Dennis seems excited. He seems like it's going to be a good fit. What's the head coach think? What's the planned role for Dennis, Steve Kerr?
We haven't decided exactly who our starting lineup is yet, but you can bet he's going to be out there quite a bit. He'll take all the non-Steph minutes for sure, and he'll play with Steph as well. I just think having 2 point guards, two guys at the point of attack who can penetrate the paint and get the ball moving, I think that's important in the modern NBA. So Dennis is going to play a lot for us, and there's a reason we traded for him. We need him right now. Our last 10 games, our offense has been among the worst in the league, and we think he's going to fill the shoes of DeAnthony Melton, who was our starter next to Steph, as you know, and gave us another point of attack guy. So we've missed that, and it's exciting to get Dennis because he's a hell of a player.
Steve Kerr also expects Dennis and Steph to be closing games together.
I like having the two-pronged point guard attack. Dennis is really good defensively. He's not a big guy, but he's quick. He's got long arms. He can guard either spot, and he's got a great feel. He's a competitor. So I think those two will end up closing a lot of games together.
I can't wait. Grizzlies, Warriors tomorrow. Dennis Schröder, again, he's just a fun player to watch. And the more fun players I watch, I'm going to be interested in. Now, I didn't watch a second of the NBA Cup last night. I'm going to be honest. If you did, God love you. And I think that's a problem with the NBA right now. The fact that this in-season tournament and no one gave a rip about it. Like, how? I know this whole thing is about adding more revenue and adding some juice, an extra layer in the regular season, but the Bucks Thunder, who have really good, they have good teams. The Bucks, all of a sudden, they were left for dead. Now they're not. Darvin Ham, by the way, undefeated in NBA Cup play as a Lakers head coach and now a Bucks assistant, for those of you who want to know that. And Giannis Antetokounmpo winning the NBA Cup MVP. But they were left for dead just a few weeks ago. Just the month we were saying, oh, let's start calling up Milwaukee. Let's go get Giannis, guys. Let's go get Giannis. And now all of a sudden it's just like the Bucks are saying, oh, let's go call Steph. Let's go get Steph. Things happen fast. Runs change things. Can the Warriors get back on a run here? Well, Dennis Schröder add a little extra juice to this team right now. God, they need it. Lost 8 of their last 10. It's not happening right now. From the Comcast Biz text line 510, I think this move for Dennis Schröder can change the Warriors season. Wow. Change it how? Is it a couple game improvement in the win column? Is it taking a load off of a guy like Steph Curry at times? Another ball handler never hurts. A guy that could get to the lane, get to the rim. A guy that is a pest defensively. I just think he's going to be a positive player for this team. I don't see this as a negative move. Now, when I hear the offensive aspect of Curry and Schröder together, that excites me. That tantalizes me. Conversely, both of them defensively, that's small, right? Like, those guys could be vulnerable to a Luka or a Kyrie or something like that. And Anthony Edwards, right? Try to switch on to them. Now, Schröder is no slouch defensively. He plays bigger than his height. But Steph's getting old. And they're going to try to attack that. So that's going to be something to monitor as well. We're up against it. Bonte and Shasky next. Anthony Slater, 8:30. Courtesy of the River Islands guest line. Our 95.7 The Game Warriors insider also covers the team for The Athletic. He's going on the road trip to Memphis to watch the Dubs take on the Grizzlies tomorrow. And we'll have all that coverage right here on 95.7 The Game. But in the meantime, enjoy the morning roast. Have a good morning, everybody.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco on Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and